The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Ryan Luis Rodriguez, he who hath an inherently silly name presiding. All rise for the Honorable Ryan Luis Rodriguez.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice, Kitty Pryde. Hope you survive the experience. Nailed it. Today, we are hearing the case of The People versus Dark Phoenix. Set in 1992, it details the descent into villainy of veteran ex-person Jean Grey after a mysterious celestial energy imbues her with amplified, albeit uncontrollable powers. For those unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always, in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Schlender, you are appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I don't think your name is silly.
Thank you.
Let me begin. Peoples of the jury, do you smell that? That burning sulfur that lingers so heavily in the air, that is not the rising of the phoenix, but rather the worst belches of hell itself. For you see, we have scraped the bottom of the superhero barrel so thoroughly, we have entered into the fiery underworld itself. What do you say when you have nothing to say? You say nothing. That is the chief crime of this terrible film. Its utter vacuity. A paucity of characters, a story so shallow you wonder if it was more than a mere cocktail scribbling from some executive meeting. Here we are now on the 11th X-Men movie, and it is going through the motions of any other superhero movie that you can pull from the heap. And what a heap it is. A festering collection of vile putrescence that threatens to consume our very culture.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Mr. Boik, you are appearing for the defense. You may present your opening argument.
Good evening, Your Honor, ladies and gentle X-Men of the court. Ooh. I am Derik Boik, and I will be representing the Dark Phoenix in this very important case. My client, the Dark Phoenix, is an exceptionally thoughtful, complicated, and at times grim story.
Exceptional, I get it.
That explores deep issues. Abandonment, loss, trauma, repression, forgiveness, nurturance versus manipulation, the seeking of power, of popularity, of acceptance, and the inevitable corruption of all three, and ultimately finding and accepting yourself. But since its debut on June 7th, 2019, the Dark Phoenix has been the victim of harsh, biased, and baseless criticism from so-called professional critics and prosecutors alike, who unfairly and unjustly maligned my client in the media, causing would-be viewers, myself included, to stay away and believe the negativity rather than making up their own minds, which is ironic, for breaking away from destructive preconceptions and learning to think for yourself is indeed one of the main themes of this work of art. Now, it is true that this movie did not do too well in the box office, but I am here to argue that this was due to an oversaturated market, inadvertent similarities to a movie released just shortly prior, and a snowballing effect from biased negative criticism. Furthermore, I don't believe you can equate box office sales with true artistic value any more than you can equate one's popularity with the strength of their character. And while I can admit the movie, not unlike its title character, was unable to reach its full potential due to forces outside of its control. The fact is, it is a good movie with outstanding performances and extraordinary writing that explores some very dark literary themes. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope today, after hearing the evidence presented to you and exploring some of the aforementioned themes, that you will find my client not guilty of being a bad movie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boik. The prosecution may begin their arguments.
For the record, I am not a professional. I wandered in off the street. Second of all, what we need to understand about this movie is the sheer vacuity of it, because we have seen this before. As the defense just admitted in their opening statement, it bears similar resemblance to another superhero movie that had just come out that we have discussed on this very show in this very court. And I am referring, of course, to the house that Jack built. Wait. No. Captain Marvel. In Captain Marvel, you have an airline stewardess who is trying to rob her employer. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Captain Marvel is a superhero who absorbs toxic masculinity. Wait, no. She absorbs a celestial spirit of energy from Annette Bening. It turned out to be a better movie than Wonder Woman. Let that sink in for a moment. And now we're talking about a movie that's even worse. We're talking about a movie that is about the Phoenix. So let's discuss, what is the Phoenix? The Phoenix is a Marvel contraption, maybe character if you want to go that far. I don't think we can even say it's a character. And this Phoenix construct exists for one reason: to give the X-Men an insurmountable challenge that they will subsequently surmount. Gone are the days of an introspective Magneto driven mad by the evils of men and measuring his own violence against them, even though he holds them as lesser life forms. My God, ladies and gentlemen, do we remember when Magneto had something to say? Here, in this film, we are treated to Magneto's refuge of Geonosis, which is not floating in space. A baffling and vexing decision that alone may drive me to hysterics, and I may be dragged out of the courtroom if I continue down the path of Geonosis not being in space. But
isn't it Genosha?
Yeah, objection, Your Honor. I believe
Geonosis
he's leading the
from
witness.
Star Wars.
Oh, that's true. Geonosis is where they were making the clones. Like,
Yeah.
This movie is a clone of other X-Men movies that we've already seen, only without the soul, without the heart, without the force.
Your Honor, if I may interject here.
Please do.
You can object, not interject.
I believe Eric definitely had something to say in this movie. If I may read a quote. He says to Jean when she visits him, "I've lived with vengeance my whole life. Ever since I was a child, I lost everyone I ever loved. So I hurt people. Yes, kill people. Killed whatever I thought would make the pain go away. It didn't." I think that is a beautiful statement for 2020. And how dare you say otherwise?
I will say otherwise, sir. I will. Because what happens immediately after that? I will tell you. Because it hurts your case, and if you were to answer, it would make you a bad attorney. He immediately agrees to go kill Jean Grey with Beast. Now, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, if I could provide some context to the court. Shortly after Jean Grey is imbued with these Phoenix superpowers that make her so strong and so powerful, it's insane. My God, she can read everyone's minds, and it's so tiresome. My God. Anyway, the point is, it turns her into a bad guy. She finds out that she was betrayed by her father, who she thought was dead. But it turns out he's alive. And so we get treated to what we get to see in every single X-Men movie. A father rejecting their child, or some kind of parental figure rejecting their child. We see it all the time. My God, man. Back in the 90s when they tried to do that live TV show, the Generation X, when that was the whole point, is, my goodness, we've seen this before, and that's going to be a recurring theme as we keep going. So she confronts her father, and the father says, I hate you because you're a mutant. Shocker. That's what happens in every X-Men movie. Okay,
Objection, Your Honor, that is not what the father says.
Sustained.
Okay, so the father rejects her. I think that, can we say that's stipulated? I mean, he's obviously not warm and snuggly.
Objection, Your Honor. The wife in question was very hot, and the husband in question would never have been able to get this woman. So it's, it's understandable to me, and I think to most people.
I suppose that's sustained?
How can you sustain that, Your Honor? I demand for a mistrial.
He has some solid logic. He can back it up.
The hotness of the wife notwithstanding, and not stipulated, mind you, but I can't object to an objection. But regardless, the father rejects Jean, casts her out. Jean goes crazy. The X-Men try to stop her. They show up in their super suits to stop her, really confirming that she's the villain now, you see.
Objection on speculation. Crazy?
What do you
mean? That
mean?
is a pejorative. I will allow that objection.
She loses control. Yes?
I'll accept.
Very well.
Sustained.
So it's stipulated that Jean Grey can't control these powers. That's one of the whole reasons the Phoenix exists, to be super powerful that she could barely contain it. I mean, spoilers, she eventually does contain the powers and uses it to save the day. Shocker there, I know, right? So, the X-Men show up. They're gonna stop her. They don't, because it's the beginning of the movie and you can't stop her just yet. And we know there's gonna have to be a few action set pieces to really drag this thing out. She accidentally kills. Now, this is a huge spoiler. I know we have the warning at the beginning, but this is serious stuff here. Kills Raven, a.k.a. Mystique. Or for the people out there who don't follow it too much, she is the blue lady who can shapeshift. She is dead. This death
Jennifer Lawrence.
Her, played by Jennifer Lawrence, yep. This death causes her to go seek out Magneto and ask Magneto, how did you stop killing? Which the defense had just read that quote where he was talking about it. But the second Magneto finds out that someone he loves, which he had just talked about, how that wasn't bringing back the people he loved, finds out that someone he loved was killed, he decides, I'm going to go kill this person. So it completely undoes the very nature of the quote, which would be lovely if you were able to adhere to those sentiments. Imagine for a moment if Magneto had really changed, if he had really evolved, and he found this out, and yes, he was upset, but he said to Charles, he's like, yes, I miss Raven. Yes, I miss Mystique. Yes, I miss Jennifer Lawrence. She wasn't in the movie long enough. But my God, we need to save Jean. No, that's not what he does. He's like, no, we're going to kill her. Completely undoing that beautiful moment. So that destroys what Magneto had to say, if you're saying that's what he had to say, because actions speak louder than words. And when we saw Magneto saying in, for example, also played by Michael Fassbender in X-Men First Class, during the whole Cuban Missile Crisis scene, in the much, 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 much better film that actually had something to say, because the X-Men always have something to say, except in this movie. Magneto, when confronted with his past and the future, all at the same time in his head, when the missiles are coming and he's going to send them back. And Charles says, they're good men just following orders. And he says, I've lived my life at the mercy of good men following the orders for too long. It's a very poignant moment, I mean, we like to talk about Nazis a lot in this, and that has a lot to do with X-Men First Class, and this idea like, oh my God, how could the Germans do these things? And, that's something that Magneto was struggling with in that movie. Very poignant. And he has none of that depth. Absolutely none of that depth in this movie. And what's little bit he tries to scrounge together that the defense read to us in that quote, that little morsel, immediately discarded, immediately thrown away.
I would like to object on the account that he never follows through with this killing. He does have a change of mind at the end.
That is true.
Well, of course, they have to have the big fight at the end. I mean, you have Professor X give the, rah, 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 rally around, we're going to save Jean speech, and then Beast, who is full of murderous rage, suddenly realizes, no, Raven, wouldn't want me to murder her. It's like, well, she never would have wanted you to murder her, especially the part where you thought you had to murder her. You know, there's no new information. They just have the change of heart because the end of the movie needs to happen. There's no substance to it. Again, the utter vacuity of this movie on full display for anyone who has eyes to hear and ears to listen.
Damn it.
Eyes to see, I should say. But if you can hear with your eyes, I suppose.
Does the defense have any rebuttal to that logic?
I definitely see a much deeper movie than you may be capable of. If we can go from the beginning, I know that you are harping on the beginning scene where her father abandons her. And I would like to delve into that a little deeper. So in the prologue, she kills her mother, which, again, I think is far out of the father's league.
Agreed.
This is a story that begins with matricide. Then it becomes a story of being abandoned by one's father. She gets a surrogate father in Charles Xavier, but it turns out through the course of the film, he is not perfect. He manipulates her. He is trying to nurture her, but in so doing, he's lying to her. He's keeping the truth from her. It's a very overprotective, overbearing, and, not quite wholesome father-daughter relationship. When she learns of this, and in the same moment learns that her father is not dead, but just abandoned her, she denies her surrogate father, goes to her biological father, and in that scene is abandoned again. And if you remember that scene, that's where she notices that he has only pictures of the mother, none of her, and that is when she realizes that he gave her up on purpose. At that moment, he says to her, "You want to come in? Come all the way in. Never forget what you did." And that's when she fully realizes the truth of her killing her own mother. And at that point, Charles Xavier comes back with, this time, the X-Men. There was the first fight between Jean and the X-Men, and she needs to break away again. Now, where does she go? She killed her mother in the beginning. She was abandoned by her father. She finds out her surrogate father is not perfect. And in this moment, she accidentally kills her new surrogate mother. That's what Raven represents to her. This is a story of ongoing matricide and father issues.
How is that particularly deep, though? You said that you were objecting to it being deep. You're just describing the plot of the movie.
No,
I failed to see where the value is coming from.
It is not just that she kills Raven and it's just some girl that she was friends with. She was her surrogate mother. This is the second mother in her life that she has accidentally killed with her powers.
So what does that mean, though? That's what the objection was about, is like, this is deep. This means something. My contention is that this doesn't mean anything. We have no feeling for her. There's no depth here. This is literally things that are just happening to move plot.
But it's such a deep look at relationships. Because the next person that she goes to is Magneto in the search for another father. He also abandons her.
Well, she abandons him.
Well, no, he's the one that says, "You need to leave." She comes to him for help, and there's actually a scene where he says, "What do you think I can do for you? How can I help you?" And she screams out, "I don't know," because she literally doesn't know. She's just grasping for a parent.
Objection. The writers didn't know, and they were grasping for more scenes with Michael Fassbender.
I would think that this is not a tunnel with a light at the end. That's true. This is a grim look that there is not always a happy ending, that sometimes there is a person in need of help and there is no help to give.
But then she goes out and so after this part where they're talking here, just to give a little more background of everything that involves Magneto in this movie, the army shows up to capture Jean, and obviously, I mean, this is Magneto. Of course, they bring their metal guns and metal helicopters, to fight Magneto, we don't want to fight, but like, they end up fighting, of course, because then Jean comes out and she starts making a scene, and then that's when he tells Jean to leave, right? I mean, like, this whole ridiculous push and pull with the chopper, you literally have Michael Fassbender saying, "Get to the chopper." I mean, and like, why would you get in the chopper? Jean's going to blow it up, and then he gets flung out and flies away. That's exactly That's exactly how that should play out. It's just simply absurd. So I don't see where you're getting any of this as being deep. That she's going to the only people that she knows, that she can't control this power inside of her. It's everything that happens is just to set up the next scene. There's no depth. Again, there's just an utter vacuity here that can't be explained away. I'm sorry.
I think you're looking for that light at the end of the tunnel, and this movie does not provide that to you.
I am not. Give you a safety net. I am looking for a message. You said there was deeper meaning because of how she views these surrogate fathers and mothers and how there's matricide. What does that mean, though, for the film? What does that mean as a story? What do we take away from that as an audience? I'll tell you, it means nothing. We take away nothing. The movie has nothing to say. There is no value here. It is empty. It is hot air.
The very next person. Would you like to... Yes, sorry. The very next person that she goes to is Jessica Chastain's character in Seeking Another Mother. And this is the first person who wants to help her unleash her powers. And of course, we soon learn that she, of course, wants to abuse and use her, just like the rest, but even worse than the rest. And again, she has to realize that she's better off on her own. This is a story of independence. This is a story of realizing that those support nets are not out to help you.
So your claim is that the big message in the movie is you got to look out for number one.
I think,
even though they all team up at the end to save her.
No, I think this is
people who do these bad things to her throughout this whole movie. Obviously, except for discount Gwyneth Paltrow there and for the shape-shifting alien. I mean, fortunately for those shape-shifting aliens, Sterling Shepard and Gwyneth Paltrow are already tied to better Marvel movies, so they had to get the cut rate guys, but more shape-shifting aliens. This is what we really need. We got to see those guys wearing their windbreakers and jeans attack a train, the power level fluctuating wildly, like a 50 cal bullet can kill them, but normal bullets can't kill them. If Beast throws them against a wall hard enough, it could kill them. Oh my God, don't get me started on the shape-shifting aliens. Oh, maybe I should. It would strengthen my case. But
actually, objection. If you rewatch that part, many people that you think are dead come back later, so they're not actually dead.
Yeah, but they get so they could get shot up, they can regenerate, they do the whole T-1000 thing. But in the end, it doesn't matter because it is the main cut rate Gwyneth Paltrow who has, at this point in the movie, I should tell the court, the shape-shifting alien has absorbed Son of the Phoenix power, even though we're not given a reason for why she's able to absorb the Phoenix power. All we know about the aliens is what they tell us. They say that the Phoenix destroyed their planet, and they are hunting after it. I mean, at least in the cartoon, we got a little more meat on the bone about why the Phoenix is in the comics too, I would imagine. But in this, we just have to take the aliens at their word. Like it reminds me a bit of another very good movie, a team-up movie this time, though. Star Trek Generations. What's that?
Reminds me of another very good movie.
No, it reminds me of another movie, comma, a very good movie. You see, you got to listen for those commas, Mr. Juryman.
Oh, allow it.
Thank you. Star Trek Generations with the Nexus, right? The bad guy trying to absorb the Nexus, outly played by Malcolm McDowell. I mean, that's how bad this movie is. I feel confident enough to talk about how great Generations is, and that's not even that good of a movie. My point is, we have to just take these aliens at their word. They are just literally there so we can have a huge fight at the end of the movie. You could have done this whole movie without Magneto, because he adds nothing. You could have done it without the shape-shifting aliens. This could have been a very interesting character piece on Jean. It could have been these things about dealing with rejection, struggling to find independence. But in the end, it simply isn't. In the end, it falls prey to what so many superhero movies do. And interestingly enough, which X-Men movies usually don't do, with basically the exception of this and Apocalypse being particularly odious examples. But you have First Class. You have them making very interesting points, looking into the character of Magneto. What does it mean to be a mutant? What does it mean to be a superior man if you do view yourself as a superior man? When you have Logan, which I think everyone would say is probably the best X-Men movie. Also, we should point out that Hugh Jackman, not in this movie at all, and it suffers greatly for it. Colossus, not in this movie at all, suffers greatly for it. Tons of fantastic opportunities absolutely missed because the movie didn't really want to say anything. It just wanted to get out there to try to make a buck. My point is, X-Men is usually the exception to these stupid superhero traps. If you want to go back and listen to the Reels of Justice about Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel, we get into a lot of these things. And usually X-Men is very good at avoiding those traps, but not here. It took the hook, line, and sinker, and it suffers for it immensely.
Defense?
Objection on Logan being the best X-Men movie.
That's fair.
I'll allow it.
I think Days of Future Past is clearly the best of all the X-Men franchise.
Actually, I would probably be inclined to agree, or First Class, I might say, to be honest with you, but they're both really good.
I disagree, but sustained.
Now, as far as if it pleases the court, may I ask a question?
Please do.
Which do you think is a better movie between The Last Stand and Phoenix?
Are we asking the entire court?
I can ask anyone in the court.
Last Stand is better.
Last Stand is better.
The
jury's going to hold
Never
off.
ask a question you don't know the answer to, my guy.
Yeah. Well, the jury's the answer. Well,
the jury's going to hold off.
According to an audience score, you're wrong. So Rotten Tomatoes score of Last Stand was 57%.
Objection. We've established precedent that Rotten Tomatoes scores can't stand on their own.
Sustained aggregates are not allowed in this court.
Wait a minute. That is not something we've established. We've established them as useful evidence, but they don't prove or disprove a film is good or bad.
Yeah,
but
this was my point. My point was actually that I believe that because 2019 had an oversaturation of, it had Captain Marvel in March, it had Shazam in April, it had Avengers late April, that this was subjugated to, being negatively criticized because it was just an oversaturated market. But then,
I would object to that. There is no way you can look at this movie and view it as a good way to introduce anyone to anything about X-Men. This was it's just a bad movie that does a very poor job of establishing the characters if you don't already know them. I don't think the movie stands on its own. I think the movie needs more context, and it's just bad because of it.
Well, I do want to interject really quick and say that although we can accept talking about the critical reception or audience reception of a film in this court, it is for context only. The jury is instructed to not factor that in to their decisions.
Sure. Well, if I may toss one thing in to compare The Last Stand with Dark Phoenix and why I think Dark Phoenix is superior in at least this one point.
No, please do.
Please do.
So the saga of the Dark Phoenix in the comic book ends with Jean's funeral after she sacrificed herself to deny the Phoenix Force a host. And in The Last Stand, it is not Jean that sacrifices herself. Ultimately, it's Wolverine that makes his decision to kill her, his love, to protect everyone. Therefore, the story focuses on his sacrifice, his loss, and his pain. And at least in the Dark Phoenix, it is her that ultimately makes the choice to sacrifice herself, which, side note, I don't believe that she actually sacrifices herself. I believe she leaves the planet because of the last glimpse you see of the flames in the sky.
I think we could say it's stipulated that she's still alive at the end of the movie because she also has the voiceover.
Exactly. So it is my opinion that this is clearly better, especially for the times. It is a feminist stance. It is her choice. It is her sacrifice, her loss. It is her movie, and it is not some man that gets to choose when to make that sacrifice. And I believe when you compare those two, at least on that one note, Dark Phoenix is clearly better.
Well done.
You can compare a bad movie to a bad movie. You're still comparing bad movies. You know, I don't think going for the whole cheap, like, it's a feminist choice thing, you know, that's why they should call them the ex-women, you know, when Jennifer Lawrence says that, which actually I thought it was kind of funny, to be honest with you. But, you know, like, that's just kind of low. That's just like the easiest kind of pandering that you could do in superhero movies. If I can, once again, direct people to listen to the Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel, you know, we really get into what it could mean to have a feminist message in this movie. And if we're going down that road for this movie with Phoenix, it falls significantly short, you know, and it falls short of two movies that were already pretty bad. So it's doing a worse job than two bad movies already.
Defense?
Sorry, are you saying that Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman are both bad movies?
Correct.
I'll accept that. I have no.
Though people should listen to that. I've plugged that episode like 7 times already, so hopefully people have already listened to it. Because,
but I will say
a lot of these tropes in that episode.
I will say that because Captain Marvel came out only 3 months prior to the Dark Phoenix, a lot less people saw the Dark Phoenix, and people compare Captain Marvel to Dark Phoenix because there are a lot of similarities. The shape-shifting aliens are in both, but of course, Fox did not have the rights to the Skrulls, so they maybe in a previous script could have used Skrulls. I know that they had to reshoot their entire third act because it was too similar to Captain Marvel. The last act was supposed to take place in space. So there are reasons. I'm not saying that gives it, that is why it should be accepted or not accepted. But I am saying that may have tainted a viewer's idea on what the movie looked like.
You know, this brings up a very important point, though. The context in the way we watch movies does matter. Coming out in a super saturated market does matter. When you have better options out there, like you could say, hey man, you would really like Hamburger Helper, but I get to eat like filet mignon every night. You know, it's like we have better options, and not only better options via Captain Marvel, we have better options in X-Men. We have better options in movies about X-Men, about the Phoenix, in X-Men Last Stand. You know, it's still a bad movie, but it's better than this train wreck, which, spoilers, ends with a literal train wreck. You know, they're actually on a train. It's very, you know, I just doubt the director was that self-aware. The writers I doubt the writers even existed. This might have just been spit out by some weird AI or 100 monkeys in 100 rooms with 100 typewriters. My goodness.
I would say it really goes home with my tunnel with no light at the end metaphor. It is the train with no light at the end of the tunnel metaphor. And that's what this movie is.
I object to that because we see the Phoenix save the day. I mean, everyone comes out ahead. We already stipulated that I almost called her Janine, that Jean lives and the Phoenix is flying around. You know, her sacrifice, as you called it, was quite minimal. And, you know, speaking of sacrifice, what is she really leaving behind? Can we talk about how terrible Cyclops is in this movie? Of all the things that they've kept from the X-Men movies from the past moving forward, they kept the angsty Cyclops, who's just such a whiny little, I'll have to refrain myself, I don't want to swear like he does in the movie when he's like, oh, I'll effing kill you. It's like, oh yeah, real tough guy. I mean, my goodness, you just want to wash his mouth out with soap. He looks like such a child. My God. So like, that's what she's leaving behind. She's leaving behind like this weird little whiny guy, you know, and Beast, who is not Kelsey Grammer in this movie, which I could rest my case on that alone, but I won't do it. Like, again, the whining and everything. It's like, oh my God, can we just stop that? The melodrama in this movie is through the roof. The emoting, the wooden performances from otherwise good actors, they're just going through the motions. I mean, how can you watch James McAvoy in a movie like Split and watch him in this and be like, yeah, that's the standard, that's the level? You know, it was like the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi and then he does Moulin Rouge. It's like, well, hold on a minute. So what's the real problem here? If you have good actors but you can't direct them and you can't write for them, you get a bad movie.
Now, I would definitely say that James McAvoy plays a better Charles Xavier than Patrick Stewart ever could.
Objection.
No, I'm going to allow it.
What? On what grounds? At least say he's on thin ice.
The way that James McAvoy plays Charles Xavier is an arrogant, fame-hungry, approval-seeking at the expense of putting his own surrogate children in danger. This compared to Patrick Stewart's Xavier, who was a sort of an all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-benevolent daddy character who really had no emotional depth. Now, if you want to say, oh, well, he had emotional depth in Logan, I would say that he just yelled motherfucker a lot.
You'll get no objection from me. I'm not a huge fan of people like Patrick Stewart swearing. I think it's beneath them. But a lot of this performance that you're attributing to McAvoy, we pick up in the previous movies. In this one, it's just very bluntly stated when Raven's having that temper tantrum in his office. It's like, oh, when was the last time you put yourself on the line? And he's yelling like, oh, well, this is what we have to do. Also, can we just point out how ridiculous it is that the president calls them and they're like, oh, I guess we do space missions now. It's like, well, yeah, you have a spaceship. I mean, of course you're going to do a space mission. Oh my God. That was like,
can I just point out that in 11 movies, this is the first time you see mutants in space.
That is
and we should have had more of it because that's where what's the name of Magneto's little colony there? I'm guessing Genosha. Genosha is supposed to be floating in outer space. It's supposed to be sweet as hell. Like there's supposed to be all sorts
of asteroid M that's supposed to be floating in space.
Exactly. There's supposed to be so much cosmic stuff that goes with Phoenix that makes it awesome. If people if anyone ever watched on YouTube, the Juggernaut bitch, that really funny thing, that is all cut together from the Phoenix arc of the animated series, which is really well done, which is really cool. And you get all that cool cosmic stuff. You get to go into outer space and meet Cyclops' dad and all this awesome stuff that is supposed to come with it. And we get none of it in this movie. They shut the door right in your face. It's atrocious.
I agree that there could be more. But there are firsts of many things, first scenes in space, first villains that aren't just humans or other mutants, first to show a world in which they are publicly known heroes, something that Charles always yearns for. And it is the first to show Genosha, a commune for mutants, which I found pretty amazing to see mutants.
And I found it to be not in space. No, these things that you mentioned, though, like them being seen as heroes, why are they seen as heroes? Literally just so it can all be taken away when Jean goes rogue or rouge or whatever it would be because she's a Phoenix now, and she's got the red hair. It was a bad joke. I want to strike him from the record. My point is I don't want to say goes crazy. We established that. She loses control. Assaults the cops and the government soldiers and all that. And so then the president hangs up on Xavier. So now we're back to square one with the X-Men being hated again. But that's where they always end up because it's an X-Men movie and humans are the bigoted monsters. It's supposed to hold up a reflection. But you know what? We've seen it before. It was already done better. Again, Fassbender's speech alone on the beaches of Cuba illustrated this point in memorial. You know what I mean? You don't need to make this again. Again, because the movie has nothing to say. So it's saying nothing. It is going through all the tick marks of an X-Men movie. Oh, humans are bad. Some mutants are bad, but then they can certainly be good too. And also, I got a big tangent here, but how does Storm's atmospheric powers work in outer space? All right. I mean, we want to talk about the space scene. Okay, let's talk about the space scene. Because, again, first of all, it's ridiculous that they literally have a spaceship and then they're like, we do missions in space. You have the duct tape around Nightcrawler so he can go into the ship. When they go back to the ship, they don't bring Quicksilver again, even though he's super fast and can grab this guy and they can teleport out. Jean, hey, we've never been to outer space before. Do you think you can survive in the vacuum of space just using your mind? Well, let's find out. It's like, what if she couldn't have done that? They have no basis for any. They got very lucky. And here's another thing I want to point out really quickly, because this has been infuriating me for every X-Men movie. And if you are a true X-Men fan, this will infuriate you too. And I want to say it once for the record, Reels of Justice, this will last forever. Cyclops has a concussive blast. He does not shoot laser beams like a stormtrooper, okay? So when he shot the spaceship, that was like hitting it with an earthquake. It should have destroyed the spaceship or sent it spiraling even further. That is just how the power works and is understood, except in the movies where it's this weird laser blast, except when it's more convenient for them to treat it as the concussive blast, like when he needs to blow down doors and things of that nature. So I'm going to rest my case because I'll just keep rambling about Cyclops' concussive blast and how Geonosis or Genosha is not in outer space, and I respect the court's time too much and will yield to the defense.
The court appreciates your brevity.
Brevity?
For me, that's pretty good.
I will concede and agree with the concussive blasts.
I knew you would because you are a man of honor.
It is treated as a laser when he hits the spaceship. It's treated as a concussive blast when he blasts Jessica Chastain through a wall, and it doesn't cut right through her. However, Storm isn't using the atmosphere of space. She's using the artificial atmosphere of the spaceship, where the air is leaking out of the spaceship. She's able to make that air turn to ice.
Okay, actually, I could accept that.
And second of all, the only time that they put the space helmet on Nightcrawler is not when they go into the ship. It's when he goes into the ship, but then out of the ship again to find the other space astronaut. Jean Grey is in the main part of the ship, as was Quicksilver earlier when he didn't need a helmet.
That is correct.
No, but he still put the helmet on with duct tape. That is not safe. That's not how space works.
Have you ever been to space, sir?
For the purposes of this recording, yes. I certainly haven't been to space with mutants, and you have to concede that Jean did not know if she could survive in the vacuum of space with just her mind powers. There's no way of knowing that.
She wasn't in the vacuum of space. She was in the spaceship.
While it was breaking apart and they were floating in it, though.
And was holding it together.
But she created more atmosphere around her? Then why
I would also like to point out
that what happened.
Well, first of all, she was holding it together while inside the spaceship, keeping it from breaking apart. And I would also point out that that is the first time in the movie she sacrifices herself. She actually sacrifices herself twice.
Oh my goodness, it's almost like she's born again, Phoenix or something like that. Jeez, holy cow. It's like that's what we need for the movie to happen.
I rest my case.
Very well.
And the court would like to ask the defense one question, just out of curiosity. You believe that the Dark Phoenix is a less problematic adaptation of the Dark Phoenix saga than The Last Stand. Would you say that it is a good adaptation overall, or just better?
Now, it is not as good as it could be, if I can give you a little backstory there.
Please do.
When they first started working on it, the first idea was for it to be the beginning of a new trilogy.
Yes.
So originally it was meant to be the first part of a new trilogy.
Exactly what we need in this oversaturated market. Another trilogy. Fantastic.
Later, The Dark Phoenix was planned to be a two-film story. The first film featuring Phoenix and the second film featuring Dark Phoenix. I think that would have been spectacular. But all of these plans were scrapped when Disney acquired Fox in 2017. And so it was quickly turned into a 2-hour movie. And it is what it is as a final installment. And yes.
Okay, so you both rested your cases?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Schlender, would you like to provide your closing statement?
Would I like to provide my closing statement? Yes, Your Honor, I would like to put this to bed once and for all. I really would. And I think the case stands so well on its own that I would like to take this opportunity for my closing statement to read a poem that I think is going to be very relevant here. This is the second half. It goes, "Banished from heaven, I found this victim beaten, stripped, kneed, and left to cry. Dropping my rope, Aside, I ran, ignored the uniforms. Then I remembered bread my flesh had eaten, the kiss that ate my flesh, flayed without hope. I held the man for nothing in my arms. That's from James Wright's St. Judas.
I don't know why I allowed that, but
yeah, I
okay.
don't either.
Defense, would you like to provide your closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the court, let me first thank you for your time and attention this evening. I believe that my client's only guilt was in not providing the proverbial spoonful of sugar with the medicine. At times it was bleak, at times it was grim, and it did not provide the humor that a popcorn munching audience may be accustomed to. But I hope that you will judge the movie for yourself and not by preconceived notions based on the biased negative criticism from others. Before you leave to begin your deliberations, please allow me to read a quote from the movie that appears in the prologue. Who are we? Are we simply what others want us to be? Are we destined to a fate beyond our control? Or can we evolve, become something more? That is what this movie asks of us, and that is what I ask the court today. Thank you.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Haslar, Mr. Maynard, Mr. Rodriguez, you have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Well, that was a very long discussion about a very subpar movie. Mr. Maynard, what did you think of the arguments made?
Well, I thought there were some interesting points made on both sides. I thought that the prosecution was grasping for straws a lot more. Some of his points were that the movie wasn't quite accurate to the comics, and that as a true X-Men fan, he didn't appreciate that. But then he didn't know the name of Genosha, right? And so that kind of undermines.
Or did he not know that Asteroid M is actually the thing that Magneto has in space and not Genosha?
Yes, I was gonna interject that at some point.
Please do. I mean, call him out. I mean, he was basically calling the movie out for not being accurate to the comics, and then he didn't seem to know a lot about it himself. The small point I wanted to make about the laser doing two different things. I think Cyclops' visor can control it, how much he releases it. I don't think it just opens. He can control how much it opens, whether it's going to cut like a laser or shoot like a concussive blast. It's what it seems to me is that he has some way to control the slit.
How much it's open would determine how much force you're hit with. Like if it's very, very little, then it's just a tap. If it's all the way open, then it just blows your head off.
Right, but if it's a little tap of hot laser, then I could see it melting a door. And if it opened more, and remember that in space, he doesn't just shoot it with the laser, he looks through that gun thing, and we have no idea what that does. That could filter the laser in some way that we don't even understand and make it do something.
Star Wars, which is a much better film.
Yeah. Well, depends which Star Wars. We brought up Last Stand. So when I saw this movie, and I think the defense had a great point, this movie really got dragged through the mud early on, to the point where I see almost every X-Men movie in theaters, and I think this is the first one, probably since the first X-Men movie that I didn't actually see in theaters. And a lot of that was I haven't
seen in theaters.
I did, and the theater was empty.
Yeah, but so I was expecting a real stink fest. And as I was watching, I was kind of like, okay, well, when's the really bad stuff going to happen? I mean, sure, there was some little plot hole stuff Storm in space, which actually I thought was excellently answered, how she could control weather in space. But to me, the awful never really came up. And I'll say this, to me, the worst part of this movie is Sophie Turner, right? I mean, she's not...
Oh, really? I like her.
No, she's not a very good actress. It turns out. So she's gonna be riding that Game of Thrones wave for a while because she's not particularly good, and that's what I thought too. Very much of her in Apocalypse. When I saw X-Men Apocalypse, I thought she was a terrible Jean Grey, and that's a lot of what pushed me away from this movie too. I didn't want to see a whole movie with, is it Sophie or Sophia? I can't remember.
Sophie.
Sophie. Yeah.
Did you like Sophie Turner there, Mr. Rodriguez?
Sorry?
Did you like Sophie Turner in this movie?
I thought she was functional, but I wouldn't call it a commanding performance.
Functional.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I would. Yeah. I mean, she's just kind of there to me. And so I thought she was probably the biggest weakness of this film. Whereas, I didn't think McAvoy was bad. I think he's going through the motions, but I didn't think he was bad.
He can sleepwalk through that part now. He's done it like 3 times.
Agreed. And I think he kind of does, but for how little he lacks, I thought Beast had a lot going on in this movie.
Beast did have a lot more going on than probably McAvoy did, or even Fassbender did.
Yeah, after the death, I thought Beast kind of stole the show. As far as like some real, was that Nicholas Hoult? Yeah,
Nicholas Hoult. Yeah.
Who plays Beast? Yeah, I thought he was very emotional, and I thought probably my favorite scene is when he's like yelling at the professor in the kitchen. And right, Mystique has just died, and Beast is clearly trying to have a moment alone, and the professor's walking up talking about fond memories of Mystique. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah,
he rolled. He rolled. He rolled. But he moved into the room.
And makes it about him, interestingly. Yeah.
Yeah, and makes it about him, and he makes it about his memory.
It's kind of on brand, though.
It is, right? And that's kind of one of the first times I've seen an X-Men movie where they call out Professor X as kind of being a dick. Like, I guess it happens a little in First Class, but it's Magneto saying it. This is one of the first time really where like the actual X-Men were like, you're a douche, and Jennifer Lawrence got to touch on it a little bit, but then she died before she really got to go into it deeper. And I thought Beast had some good points on it.
And in the third act, Magneto points out that he always gives a speech and that no one cares. Which is actually a little too meta, because it does kind of point out some of the weaknesses of this particular, this is not a trilogy anymore, but in the way that these characters have interacted so far. Especially these new versions
the franchise. And I think with Days of Future Past and Deadpool, it kind of showed that the universe is aware of the multiverse of the X-Men that's going on right now. Like, they're kind of aware of it. For me, we were talking about Last Stand, and I don't hate the Phoenix stuff that happens in Last Stand. I think it's pretty good, but I think Last Stand is a pretty weak movie.
I think Last Stand is interesting because of the Cure stuff, not because of the Phoenix stuff.
See, that's...
yes.
That's strange. I think that's the weakest part of the film.
See, I don't mind the leech stuff. To me, the strongest part about Last Stand is Kelsey Grammer.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like Kelsey Grammer as Beast very much. But I thought the Phoenix stuff in Last Stand is good, but I always wanted more of it. It's basically a subplot in Last Stand, right? And you think
it's mostly the gifted arc.
Yeah, like Phoenix deserved more, and so the idea of a Phoenix movie really interested me. The points that this film actually had to be remade due to Captain Marvel is also interesting. I would have liked to see the original script where they were in space.
They were originally
and doing something else.
Yeah, and
exactly.
Splitting it up into 2 sounds like brilliant to me. I would have loved to see that.
Yeah. So a lot of this movie to me is like just like missed potential or lost potential. Like you cast someone with a little bit more fire than Turner to be Jean Grey, and I think that's the best way to say it right there. Someone with more fire, because Phoenix is passionate and has fire, and she's just kind of cold the whole time. I don't know if she was, I think the word was used crazy. I think she's actually supposed to have PTSD when she realizes, because Professor X wipes her mind and she doesn't realize she killed her mother and father. She thinks she killed her father. Right? She realizes it when she visits her father that she killed her mother, and that's what causes the PTSD. Also, I do think Logan is the best X-Men movie ever made too.
I would agree.
Thank you. See, now I know I'm right.
Man, but
what'd you say?
I'm a Days of Future Past man, but regardless.
Well, to me, it would be Logan, and then my second choice would be X2.
Like, I like X2 a lot.
Actually, I follow that logic.
See, I know I'm right because Ryan agrees. So now I know I'm nailing it. Anyway, so I really thought the prosecution was grasping at straws. To say there was nothing going on, I don't agree with. Like, the third act in this to me was really strong. I don't know what it would look like if they went into space, but I liked the train sequence. There was something kind of Wild Westy about it. And I love the quasi Skrulls. I think they're called Dabari. I think is the
which is the planet that she
race.
destroyed in the comic.
Yeah, I get that's got to be it. I like them showing up, but I really liked when she just starts disintegrating all the aliens, like with her mind, and like blowing them away like dust, kind of a la Endgame. A la Infinity War.
Yes.
Wind.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. So I just thought I'd hate the shit out of this movie, and I didn't. I don't know that I'd call it good, but I couldn't personally go so far as to call it bad. I think Sophia Turner's bad. But I mean, you get McAvoy, you get Fassbender, you get some really cool effects the whole way. I never necessarily felt bored, really. The scenes that I thought would be boring, they end up killing Jennifer Lawrence. It was more interesting. So right now I'm leaning towards not guilty.
All right, one not guilty vote on the floor. Mr. Rodriguez, were there any points that swayed you one way or the other?
Well, so the interesting thing about this film is that my biggest problem with comic book adaptations is the kind of Zack Snyder approach of you can't make it like a comic book because that's not real. It needs to be gritty and it needs to be dark and morose. And if you're doing that, why make anything about a comic book at all? That's not what comic books are necessarily about. And it's this kind of tendency to kind of take away the grandeur and take away the, some would say, I guess, more genre elements or the more kitschy stuff, simply because they don't think that it's palatable for mainstream audiences. And you have something with the Dark Phoenix saga that is so cosmic and so colorful, and you turn it into this thing that is mostly neutral colors, mostly brown, just this kind of, everybody has a very low energy approach to it. I can't necessarily say that it's a bad film. I think it's in an unfortunate spot, and then they're trying to redo a comic storyline that has already been done and done poorly. That doesn't work in its favor, although you can't hold that against the film because you have to approach every single film as a separate film.
And in the same universe, no less, so they have to follow some of those same rules about like mental blocks in her head that wasn't even in the original story.
Which only gets more complicated with all the different timelines that are at play here.
And it was done well in the animated series.
Yes, it was. I would say that's actually the best adaptation of that story.
Yeah, I would say the animated series X-Men is like the standard of X-Men that I hold any X-Men to.
And the end of Apocalypse would prove that theory to be correct, because that's the moment that everybody loves when they're wearing the 92 costumes.
And they were wearing the jumpsuits in this, right? The jumpsuits were great.
They're wearing the new X-Men costumes from 2001. But at the end of Apocalypse, Cyclops is in the blue, and it's, he's got the visor is accurate. It's got like the little, what do you call them? Bandoliers.
Sure.
But that's kind of the problem with Dark Phoenix, is that Apocalypse, I think, is a terrible film, but it ends on such a note of, now we're getting to the comics. Now we're going to do it right. We promise we will get it right next time. And enter writer-director Simon Kinberg, who goes, no, people don't want to see that. They want to see flat stuff. They don't want to see
I think they thought it was the end in Apocalypse, honestly. I didn't think they planned to do another.
Originally,
film.
all the actors' contracts expired, and he had to convince the main four to come back for this film in the hopes of starting a trilogy. And then, of course, Disney acquired Fox, and that didn't work out.
I think Apocalypse is a worse movie than this one.
I would agree.
I might
It's
agree
much longer. It's at least 40 minutes longer of just non-stop nonsense. This is shorter, I'll give it that. And I can't necessarily call it... It's not a terrible film. It's not without value. But I can't call it good either.
Well, we're not here to find whether it's good, just whether you think it's bad.
And
so
depending on how Ben is on this, I'll decide after that.
Oh, you want to
see what Ben? Let's see what Ben has to say.
Well, for me, there is a lot that's wrong with this film. It does have good ideas, and I very much want to admit that it does full out. There's things about that surrogate father thing that I think is more interesting than people who hate it are willing to give it credit. But where it fails is like it just tries to do too much, and it loses a lot of that integrity. If they split it out into 2 films or something like that, we maybe could have had something good. But it seems like you got people sleepwalking in their parts. You got plot holes that just sort of you just can't stop talking about them once you start noticing them. Like
what was one of those plot holes?
Well, maybe not plot holes, but like weird things. Like, hey, don't humans like hate and fear the X-Men? Isn't that what the X-Men are all about? Why are we switching that around on its head just because it's convenient? Sorry, plot holes was the wrong word, but I mean, like just inaccuracies. But for me, it kind of reminded me of Fight Club, but the opposite of Fight Club, where we say that. Hear me out. The opposite of Fight Club, in that people say it's such a great film, and we came down on it is a good film, but it's probably not as good as people say it is. This is the other side of that. It is a bad film, but it's probably not as bad as people say it is.
But you're saying it's a bad film.
I think it's bad. I think it's just not terrible. So I'm just on this side of guilty.
See, I liked, I liked, some of the stuff that was brought up about the search for family. And I definitely felt that in the middle where, first she goes to find her father and it doesn't work out. And then she incidentally ends up hurting what family she did have even further. And then she goes to Magneto, right? Who also can't give her what she needs. And then she ends up getting embraced by these just total strange aliens, right? And it's kind of like, well, why would you
and I agree, people? Like beat for beat, that's all pretty interesting, but then the execution of it is where it fails for me, and I kind of get bored with like just the way some people are delivering this dialogue throughout.
I just wish the aliens had been Skrulls. I think if the aliens had just been Skrulls, it would have been
I don't even know why they're Skrulls.
Well,
like the fact that Captain Marvel had Skrulls and that these people were planning on doing that is really interesting.
They were Skrulls.
The Shi'ar are the aliens in the X-Men.
Yes, but they shot the Skrulls. They were actually in the film. And they were
but what I mean
because
is like
Captain Marvel.
they chose the Skrulls even to start with, and Captain Marvel was doing that.
Yeah, I can't honestly say that it really helps the film or really has anything to do with what the point of the film is.
It could have been that they didn't know Captain Marvel was going to use the Skrulls.
Well, they didn't, but
yeah, exactly.
Fox and Marvel co-own those characters.
See,
or at least they did before they were separate entities.
Someone was finally like, we need to put Skrulls in a movie.
Aliens are in the comics for that storyline.
That's correct. Okay, so a guilty and a not guilty.
But I would like to point that both of our verdicts are pointing towards the middle. Would you agree, Mr. Maynard?
I thought I'd be more towards the middle, but I kind of got to put my foot down and just say not bad. No, I don't think not bad, especially because I've seen Apocalypse and I think Apocalypse was worse too. And I think
Apocalypse was worse too. I'm not disagreeing.
And I've seen Apocalypse a few times. Like at least this movie sticks with a lot of the base X-Men that I'm used to. And especially for something about the bad rap that it got is just kind of like, I don't think it deserved that rap. Like it's certainly not the superhero movie of the year.
No.
But it, like this ended up being like the biggest flop of the year. And I don't think it deserved to be the biggest flop of the year.
Seriously, there were like 5 people in the audience I saw on opening night. Anyway, Mr. Rodriguez, you get to be our tiebreaker.
So, yeah. Well, I have to say, the defense actually made me think about something about this film, and I was not planning on that. So, yeah, I'm going to have to vote not guilty.
Whoa. Wow. All right, so let's...
But by a no.
Is everyone locked in? Everyone's locked in? 2 not guilties and a guilty?
Locked in.
All right, let's go deliver that verdict then, Ben.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Dark Phoenix, we find the accused not guilty of being a bad movie.
Yes.
This verdict has been recognized. Congratulations, defense.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This is Flick Scorn reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mr. Schlender, would you care to share your thoughts on today's verdict?
Well, obviously, I don't agree, but as I have said before, and I will keep saying, I believe in the Reels of Justice, I believe in the system, and I accept the verdict, but I must caution people, It's the wrong verdict. The movie's bad. Don't watch it. Take care, everyone.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boik, how do you feel about today's verdict?
Yes, thank you. Justice was done today. I hope everyone who has not seen the movie go and watch the movie. It is on HBO Go, which is turning into HBO Max. And if you can get that to work, even though it doesn't work on your Roku, please watch it.
Yes, mine also doesn't work on my Roku, but you can get it through Hulu, I think, as well. And thank you very much. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for a post-trial analysis.
All right, Derek, very well done.
Well done.
I love a
Well
controversial decision.
Thank you. Yes, it was close.
It was very close, especially for Ben.
Honestly, I wouldn't have found it not. I don't think the movie's bad, to be honest with you. Like
I knew it. You're always like that.
No. Here's the thing. It's like one of the things I liked about it is that it actually had, because if you got, I'm gonna plug it one more time. I swear, just the last time. If you listen to my critique in the Wonder Woman Captain Marvel episode, I'm so sick of like the wink and the nods and like everyone being a smart aleck. At least these X-Men movies have a level of sincerity and depth to them that like you can at least sink your teeth into
with an X-phone and all that.
Well, I would say I think a lot of people are used to everything being so funny. The Marvel universe is very funny, obviously, but there are lines in this movie that are actually very funny. They just don't play them funny. Like,
it's not well acted at all.
Well, no, I don't know if I don't know that it's not well acted. I would say that it's very well acted. I just think that they, for whatever reason, when they decided to shoot whatever scenes, they decided, let's leave it. Like when Charles Xavier sees Magneto in the park, he says, "Hello, old friend," and Magneto says, "Don't give me that old friend shit." But they just keep talking afterwards. There's no pause. There's no, that's supposed to be a joke. And there's a lot of those little things. There's a little, I don't know.
There's a lot of
that is keeping with the X-Men comics, which are not typically as funny or as loose as the rest of the Marvel universe, because you're dealing with heavy metaphors as characters.
And Fassbender has a great way of being funny and dry, and he doesn't need to really milk it.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he ever really goes for the gag. He kind of plays it as a line.
But I don't feel like it's an accident. For whatever reason, now this is off the, we're not in court anymore. I don't know why they didn't go for the jokes sometimes, but for whatever reason, that was a conscious decision not to go for jokes. There was a couple of times that they definitely tried, and it was Quicksilver. Like in the very beginning, if you remember him going like, "It was mostly me. Jean came in at the end, but it was mostly me." That's maybe the one time they went for the joke.
Yeah, they knocked him out of the movie pretty early, too.
Yeah, and then after that, everything, even pretty witty dialogue, is kind of said, and they keep moving.
I do like at the end where Quicksilver tells one of the kids running in the hall to slow down.
Yes, that's another one. Yeah, so that's two Quicksilver jokes that they... it's funny, I never got to this. I actually think there's a quick nod to Quicksilver being gay in the movie.
Where at?
Elaborate.
So there is a you remember the bonfire in the woods?
Uh-huh.
Which again is another first for me. It's teenagers acting like teenagers, even teenage mutants acting like teenage mutants, I guess.
And they weren't Ninja Turtles.
There were no Ninja Turtles. There was a character setting the bonfire who's probably Match. There's Dazzler singing. There's mutants.
Even though she wasn't singing in the 1992 style, she was singing in like a 2010 auto-tune style. That kind of bugged me.
Exactly.
A little bit, but
that is Maynard and I watched the movie together. We said it would have been funnier if like Colossus was like playing Wonderwall or
yes, we wanted like if Deadpool was in this movie. Auto-tune. Yeah, that would have been interesting if somebody could change the pitch of the voice.
And then Storm makes a couple of ice cubes, but in that moment, right after she makes the ice cubes, right behind Cyclops, you see Quicksilver reach in and grab a boy and bring him in to talk, but it's very, very intimate. And it's very quick, and it doesn't really do a whole nod to it, but I thought, oh, hey.
Quicksilver would not make a good lover.
No, he'd be bang, bang, thank you.
But that observation is kind of on brand with the fact that, they're metaphors for persecution. So that would actually fit.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
why I
isn't
think
Night-
X-Men is so
isn't
good.
Nightcrawler's canonically gay, isn't he?
I don't know if
I'm
he's
not familiar
gay,
with
but
that.
I think he's bisexual. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I know that there were hints at that in the original trilogy with Alan Cumming.
Angel is definitely gay. The guy with the wings. I'm almost positive on that.
I think you're right.
They've been like
okay.
switching some of them like later down the line where like they weren't historically, but they're like, you know what? Let's just add a few more for the representation's sake.
Well, that's why like Bryan Singer's first couple movies were, pretty good because, Bryan Singer very famously gay, and he was using the gay metaphor, which X-Men has largely been viewed as, maybe not always
and civil rights
gay, but any kind of minority kind of action, really. That's what's interesting about mutants. They can be used as a stand-in for pretty much anything, but it creates problems in the Marvel universe because, like, if you're born that way, everyone hates you. But if you get your powers like the Fantastic Four did, like you're big celebrities, it's a really weird disconnect that exists that Marvel has trouble reconciling, like especially like in the comics and things.
It's kind of the difficulty of having all of this be one universe in actual places because it gets a little crowded.
Well, remember that mutants were born out of laziness, as of lazy writing.
It was, yeah.
I mean,
That's
it
true.
was,
They're tired of coming up with origins, so they're like, hey,
yeah, exactly. No more origin stories. You were just born that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. And I think X-Men exists better the further away it can get from the interconnected Marvel universe, but that's just not the way Marvel has decided to move.
I'm excited for the X-Men to move into the MCU because I think the MCU really needs it. Like losing Captain America, losing Iron Man. Like, you need some bigger name superheroes back in that franchise. It can't be all Spider-Man.
I just hope they don't go to Wolverine.
Excited. Well, like if X-Men had been in Civil War or if Fantastic Four had been in Civil War, who knows what would have happened? They were integral parts of the comics.
I thought in the comics they declared neutrality. Weren't they neutral?
Mutants did. The mutants, X-Men did. But Fantastic Four was a bigger part. The mutants.
Fantastic Four was a huge part of the Civil War. Huge, yeah. Reed Richards was basically the guy running the show.
The X-Men still had their Civil War spinoff, so it was still. If they could have taken it into the Marvel universe, who knows what they would have done with it there?
Well, then they would have gone to fight that villain Super Squad, which everyone hated, but I thought was actually kind of cool.
Hey, Dylan, I want to hear from Ryan. Ryan,
No, I'm just saying that. I mean, specifically Civil War, it's pretty overstuffed as it is. I think that by adding more characters, probably would be a little detrimental to the storyline, but it would be more kind of, I guess, in the spirit.
If you want to know more about the Marvel Civil War but don't want to read all the comic books, you could play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, which follows the Civil War storyline, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, it is. And it's great because you get the Thing on your team no matter which side you join, which he was one of my favorite characters, so it's pretty great.
Well, it's clobbering time. So, Derek, what else do you got going on? What's keeping you busy lately?
Well, I'm a story producer on TV. I don't know if you knew that. So right now I'm working on Southern Charm on Bravo.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Awesome.
And soon coming out, I believe next month, I worked on Real Housewives of Potomac. Also on Bravo. Nice. And currently Queer Eye Season 5 I worked on.
That's on Netflix, right?
Nice.
Yes, Netflix.
Awesome.
The Queer Eye guys could have a field day with this podcast, honestly. We could all use it.
With my hair alone. Oh, my God. I so need a style. I really need a style.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get Ryan some style.
There's a reason we don't do the video.
Yeah, you don't want to see it. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
The digitally de-aging me is so expensive. I need them to make me up better.
Exactly. And so that sounds good. It's keeping you busy. Hopefully the quarantine stuff is going good for you.
I mean, so far so good. I have my little studio set up.
Oh, that's
so
good.
I've been able to work from home.
Oh, nice. And we also need a suggestion for a movie from you. This can be any movie, but a movie you'd like people to see.
Oh man. All right. So I don't know if you're going to want to use this, but in doing research for this movie, I was looking on Rotten Tomatoes at other movies that were given around the 20% that I thought And I was going to use this as an argument originally to say, like, come on, look at how terrible this movie is, and Dark Phoenix is definitely better. And I found a movie that was given 19%. It was it's Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston movie called Just Go With It. Have you seen this?
I have
Yeah,
seen
I
it
have
in a
not.
while.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
So my argument was going to be, look at how terrible this movie is. Dark Phoenix is definitely better. And I started watching it, and I'm going to keep watching it after I'm done with this podcast. It is actually really funny, I think.
Just out of curiosity, what was the audience score on that?
It was 19%.
That was the critical.
Ooh.
Do what?
I thought the critical.
Oh, the audience. Hold on, let me look.
Well, it's Sandler.
Just
It has
go
to
with
be
it.
like 60, 70.
Recommending a Sandler movie, exactly.
59%.
And it isn't Happy Gilmore.
That makes sense.
No, I mean, I'm only recommending it after watching the trailer in the first 10 minutes, and it seems like a movie that I'm probably going to like.
Well, they have a Netflix one, so there's that waiting for you too.
Oh, their new movie? I watched it. It's okay.
Murder Mystery, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It should have been terrible if I just told you that there was an Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston movie, but I didn't realize that they had already made one.
Yeah. This is the Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston universe. It's a franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you watch either of these two movies, you'll find that they actually have a very good connection.
Ooh.
They are personal
Future-
friends, I think. So
Are they really?
romance.
I believe so.
I could actually see them dating in real life. They have a very good natural rapport. They're very funny, and it seems like they're making each other laugh for real the entire movie.
They would have
Sanderston?
weird-looking babies.
Very weird looking babies.
Well,
Well,
Jennifer Aniston could not have weird looking babies, no matter what she did.
think of
She could have
Adam
babies
Sandler
with
from
you,
Wedding Singer.
Dylan, and they wouldn't be that weird.
How embarrassing would that be to have the weird looking baby with Jennifer Aniston, and then everyone just looks over at Adam Sandler?
Yeah, you know it's his fault. You know it's his fault. Ryan, you are a judge this week, so you get to go first. What kind of movie do you have for us?
Well,
Suggestion.
to go further with this bad adaptation, good movie, I want to talk about Robert Altman's The Long Goodbye, which, if you've read the book, you probably hate it. But if you look at it from the perspective of Robert Altman, which is, I don't give a shit what the script is, I'm going to make something weird, it is a fantastic movie.
We appreciate Altman on this podcast because we also all talk over each other the whole time.
That is true.
Shut up, Maynard.
Sometimes I do feel like I'm in MASH.
Yeah, well, I would be Hawkeye, so for sure.
I'd be Radar.
I would be B.A. Baracus.
No, that's the 18.
Wrong
your 80s
80s
stuff.
television show.
Yeah,
if we go
okay.
with the theme of 90s comic book movies, I'm going to recommend The Crow, which is fantastic. It's like a dark universe. Brandon Lee's famously last film, probably his first one too, I believe.
No.
And if
He
no,
made a few.
no, he made a few. Oh, okay, I was wrong on that. But
They weren't good, though.
but if you haven't seen it, and I'm sure you've heard of it, but if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check that one out.
Great movie.
The Crow.
Yeah, it's good.
All right.
I saw that in the theater, I think.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Schlender?
Well, I was going to continue the tradition of recommending a movie that actually had to do about the law, but I didn't get around to watching the one that I was going to recommend, and I ended up watching Scoob with my kids. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to recommend Scoob because you know what? It's pretty good. I love Scooby Doo. It's a fun movie for the whole family. Don't go into it looking for like Mystery Incorporated level genius. You know, it's a fun. It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Is it better
I
than the
actually
live
watched that
action ones?
recently. Yes, the live
It is
action
a live
ones are
action?
terrible. No,
It's
cartoon.
animated.
No, it's a computer animated. Yeah.
But, you know, it wouldn't have to be
And
hard
that's
to
on,
be better than the live action ones.
oh yeah,
I like some of the live action ones. I like. Listen, anytime Matthew Lillard can get work, I'm. good with it.
People might not know this. There are two live action Scooby Doo movies that star Robbie Amell and some other people. They're very low budget. You can actually watch them on the I think they're available on the Boomerang app.
At least one
the only
is.
place you can watch them. Yeah, and those movies, those are great. If you can find, I don't know what they're called off the top of my head, but if you just Google Scooby Doo Robbie Amell, they'll be the ones that come up, and those are a trip.
So
Yeah,
so you have kids.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's got a couple.
So
Gotta
have
do
you seen the Onward It was released on. I don't know how you feel, but I thought that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I couldn't sit through it.
I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's not good.
Coming to a Reels of Justice near you.
I could not.
If you're gonna compare it to other Pixar movies, it's definitely
lower tier.
Definitely bad. I not as bad as the Good Dinosaur though. That's
Cars 2.
I mean, Good Dinosaur was pretty bad. No, but just like
Bad.
I expected good because it's Pixar. I sat on the couch with my daughter, and we had to watch the entire thing. I was ranting about it from maybe 5 minutes in and couldn't stop. But we watched the entire thing because it's one of those things. I'm struggling with writing a script, and I couldn't believe that the script writers didn't just throw the script in the trash at every iteration. And how did it get to the next level? How did it get to the next draft? How did it get picked up? How did it get produced? It was so bad.
To me, my biggest problem with Onward that I remember is that it had the sort of fantasy world in it. And I'm like, what was really stopping it from being humans? Why it had to be like ogres and goblins?
It was originally
it was like a pretty it was like a half-baked idea that just they didn't move forward very well.
Well,
they didn't move onward very well.
It had the same problem that the Life of Pets?
Secret Life of Pets.
Secret Life of Pets. It is whenever they got to all right, they're here. What happens next? New character.
Oh god! Secret Life of Pets is a bit of a chore to watch.
Secret Life of Pets. It was okay. Now they're here, new character. Now they go here, 3 new characters. Now they go here, another character. Now they go here, and there was no plot. That's just the Wizard of Oz.
How old is your daughter?
12.
12. Okay, mine is going to be 7 soon, and so a little younger. But that's how you can always tell if like a Pixar movie's good, because like we've watched Toy Story 2 maybe 1,000 times. We watched Onward like 3 times, so that's how you can tell.
Yeah, well, kids never watch it just once. Let's see. So, as far as
Toy Story 4, not a big fan.
No, Toy Story 3 was the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
If maybe Toy Story 4 was Toy Story 2.5, maybe.
Poor Sporky.
The problem is
who cares about Forky?
Forky.
They did Toy
He
Story
been
Terror,
Sporky,
which is fantastic, and was kind of an epilogue to the series. And then you do this, like at the end of every Toy Story movie, I am I'm just a mess. I'm just an utter wreck. And at the end of Toy Story 4, I was just like, oh, that's over. Okay.
Yeah.
That's done.
No, but I gotta agree with Ryan. The Toy Story shorts, those are a delight.
Oh, the Toy Story 2?
I like all of those. Yeah, those are fantastic.
Partysaurus Rex? Oh, fantastic.
Oh man, that was that's a go-to for the kids. They love putting that one.
And Small Fry.
I suppose we'll close this out with my recommendation, if Dylan will allow me to recommend it.
So Rob, I think you recommended Small Fry, the Toy Story Toon short. Oh, that's what time we have.
Good choice, Rob.
I did not. I'm going the total opposite direction, and I'm recommending 1957's Night of the Demon. It's also called Curse of the Demon, and it's if you guys have seen Drag Me to Hell, that's what it reminded me of. It's like a man who has a curse put on him, and like in 1 week a demon will come and kill him and take him away, and it's kind of like a whodunit because that already happens to one person, so he's trying to find out where that missing person went, and like everyone's like, it's a demon, the demon took him away, and he just refuses to believe it, even though a lot of concrete things happen that really show there's a demon. And it's basically him, counting down till it's finally his day, and the demon is to me really cool looking. Some people would probably think it's cheesy, but I think the demon is really cool looking, and worth the wait. I think it's a good climax of the movie, and it stars Dana Andrews, which we all know is famous from Rocky Horror Picture Show, because Prunes gave him the runes. All right, Dana Andrews said Prunes gave him the runes, and that is a reference to this movie, Curse of the Demon. So
they may have a lawsuit on their hands because that sounds like my life story.
Prunes giving you the runes?
No, the demon.
Oh, you think a demon is just slowly stalking you? Well, maybe.
But your life is public domain.
That's true.
Damn. Now, can I suggest one more movie? Because
go for it.
So just go with it. I just suggested because I literally just saw the first 10 minutes of it.
And you don't want to hold it to you.
Yeah, my favorite movie of all time is Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, nice.
That's a good choice.
It's got drama, comedy, action, love.
Knives.
It's a fish out of water story told both ways. She's a fish out of water. He's a fish out of water. It's a movie that you couldn't do today. The Australia that existed back then, the Manhattan, New York that existed back then, you could not reboot this movie or remake this movie. So I think it's a delight. You should watch it.
You know, I haven't seen it, ashamedly. So I'm going to finally put that on
Is
my
it
list.
as good as Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles?
And better.
Oh, wow. Hot take there.
I mean, Crocodile Dundee 2 is terrible, and Crocodile Dundee Los Angeles is terrible. I mean, again, it's a movie you just can't remake.
Well,
I feel like 2
actually
is the
seen it.
one I
wanna
saw the
see it
most
now.
on TV.
I mean, that's just, it becomes just oh yeah, he's an action star, right? It basically just turns into that.
Yeah,
Yes.
quite a bit.
So Crocodile Dundee is where it's at.
There you go.
Nice.
So there's a lot of stuff to watch this week. Apparently, don't watch Onward, or do. I think you should, just to
No, don't.
It looks
experience
beautiful.
things.
No, I actually enjoyed watching it because of how terrible it was. I could not
Yes.
wait to see. I could not even imagine what happened next, which I guess is a good movie.
Maybe. I mean, unpredictability doesn't always do it. Predictability can be bad, but that doesn't necessarily make unpredictability good. But lots of recommendations. And Derik, you did a great job defending a really unpopular film today.
Yes.
And you got it off.
Great.
So congratulations.
Yes,
We'd
well
love
done.
to.
Great.
Yeah, hopefully you can come back and join us again sometime and prosecute something or defend something.
X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh, I don't know if he can do Apocalypse. Good luck.
I did not like Apocalypse.
No, yeah, that one would be tough for me.
I
And
tried to watch it twice. I fell asleep.
well, you fall asleep during everything.
I really wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to like it too, but alas, it didn't work out, and it was overshadowed by Logan too, which was a lot better.
You know, I'll be honest, I didn't love Logan. At least the first time I watched it, I got into it maybe a little bit the second time. I think the beginning of Logan, as the movie opens, the first line of dialogue, do you remember what that was?
Is it fuck?
It's fuck. And I rolled my eyes. The audience laughed, and I thought, "Oh, this is what they're doing with the rated R."
I'm with
Yeah.
you. I hated
That
it for the
was
same
kind of
reason.
a-
Matt and
yeah.
Patrick Stewart.
I love that movie, but that is unfortunate that that's the first
You know,
line.
if we're talking about Patrick Stewart and swearing, I just want to get this in here real quick. In the new Picard show, they have this admiral swear at him all the time, and it's terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't make
I'm glad
sense.
we
You
all
just
hate
want to make
swearing.
it R-rated for no
Hey,
reason at all.
I fucking
that's-
love swearing.
It's
Yeah,
on
I
the
mean-
tail end of, Deadpool was amazing. And so they said, oh, let's do like Deadpool, but with Wolverine, and he's old. And then they say fuck a lot. Like, I liked it the second time I watched it once I got past that. But the first time I watched it in a full audience and everyone just laughed like hell at just the word fuck, I
Yeah,
was like, wow, this is who they're trying to reach?
I felt the exact same way at that exact same moment. You brought it right back to me.
So you guys are kindred spirits. I still fucking like swearing, although I
No,
prefer
no.
Logan. I prefer Logan because I like the story of old man Logan being broken down and beaten. I didn't care much one way for the swearing or not. They could
It's
have
not
made
about
it
the
PG-13.
swearing. It's not about the swearing. It is about the type of person that you just go, fuck! And they go,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially when it's Patrick Stewart. Like, that's why they love it. Like, Patrick Stewart swearing that.
Yeah,
No, I agree with you guys. That's a good take.
I think swears need to, be passionate and purposeful. I agree. There's no reason to
Yes.
to
They need
just
to be
use them.
organic.
You can't say
Yeah.
it limply. You know?
And I would agree that the worst line in the entire Dark Phoenix was, I will fucking kill you. That's why
I-
they,
It was a bad
You're
line.
saying it
Right?
wrong. It's, I'll fucking
Right.
kill you.
I thought it
they
was.
use
I
their
had a
one
change of
fuck in
heart.
that.
Yeah, which kind of alienates it from kids, you'd think. Which is what this show does too.
Well, they got one fuck. You get one fuck in every PG movie or PG-13 movie.
I don't even know why they want to use them, because it's like, let kids watch it,
I wouldn't have used it at all in that movie. And if I was going to use it, why use it in that moment?
Yeah, I completely
was-
agree.
Not
Like
convincing.
Days of Future Past, the one fuck they used was Wolverine going, fuck off.
I was about to say, fuck off.
That was
okay
the
with
First
me.
Class.
No, that was Go Fuck Yourselves.
You're right.
First Class was Go Fuck Yourselves.
Go fuck yourself. You're right.
Yeah, in Days of Future Past, he's Weapon X.
But that is the best use of the one fuck is for the cameo star Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, that we love, for him to just go fuck yourself.
For kids.
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with my kids seeing that.
Yeah, I'm fine with your kids seeing that too.
Thank you.
And with that, we are all out of show for the week. But we hope you'll join us next time as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, on Instagram, Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.